show. I have Mr. Wayne J. Keeley and his wife Stephanie. They are both, would you say you're bloggers?
We're bloggers, among other things.
They're also a producing couple, and they also have their own production company, Someday Productions, right? And you may be wondering, Geno, why aren't you wearing your usual tie and your usual suit, and why are you wearing a rock and roll heavy metal T-shirt? And well, the reason for that is because Mr. Keeley is a producer of a film from 1998 called Nosferatu-The First Vampire, and it had music by Typo Negative, which is a great band from Brooklyn. Now, we're going to show a video clip.
Vampires. They have been a significant fixture in humankind's folklore and mythology since the dawn of communication. The legends of vampires as a cultural phenomenon have mystified, entertained, entranced, and of course, horrified our collective consciousness for centuries. It was only a matter of time after the invention of motion pictures that the vampire would find its way to the big screen. In 1922, the German filmmaker F.W. Murnau both thrilled and frightened post-war movie audiences with his film Nosferatu, a symphony of horror. Nosferatu can truly be called the first vampire.
And now you die!
Well, I'm telling you, that is just a genuine masterpiece of like the combination of old and new. Fans, let me get into a little bit of my history with Nosferatu. I first saw it on TCM in 2006, I believe, because I was just starting to become a big fan of movies, big fan of old film cinema. And so I discovered it. It was the Channel 4 James Bernard restoration. And I was absolutely enthralled by it. You know, just the whole idea of Nosferatu and just, being, the whole embodiment of Max Schreck as the vampire just completely floored me. You know, the whole film, it's like, it's a masterpiece. No other horror film has ever achieved, greatness like that, since. Not even the Universals or the Hammer films could top those, could top that film. I saw other version, Alpha Video, wasn't really that great. And then I want to give a shout out to the man who introduced me to the typo negative version in the first place, a teacher actually from my school. His name is David Frankel from Middletown High. Big shout out to you, who actually gave me this copy of First Vampire because he ordered it on Amazon for me. Because it was like around Christmas time, and he was like, "Hey Geno, I got this for you, and I know you like Nosferatu." So I was like, I was like, "Oh wow, typo negative, David Carradine. I've heard about this version. I finally get to see it." So I took it home. I absolutely loved it. I'm telling you, fans, it's like, I think the favorite scene in that for me is, of course, that carriage ride scene. That's why I included it in that clip montage, is because it is so awesome. Now, the music for the film was done by Typo Negative. Now, we do have pictures of Typo Negative and Peter Steele in the graphics, if they could find them and flash those up. Now, we actually have a mutual contact, both you and I. Oh yeah, that's David Carradine being hooked up to the mics for his intro that you saw earlier on in the presentation. Now, how in the world did you get David Carradine to do this?
Well, it wasn't easy. Back in 1998, we're talking about, David Carradine obviously was younger and alive, and very popular, coming off the Kung Fu, and he had started doing a number of films. And we really did a search, a casting search, but we wanted somebody who could really give a good introduction to a horror film. And for those horror buffs out there, his father, John Carradine, played in countless horror films, and we thought about, gee, if John Carradine were alive, we could, and then we thought, wow, David Carradine is his son. And he had an interest in, doing horror and action films and things like that. And in fact, that sword, the cane that he pulls out right away, that was his dad's. And he had a whole story about how his dad gave it to him, and it was his, sword and the cane story. So he was really a professional to work with. We shot it at the, he was there at the Toronto Film Festival. And that's where we shot his segment.
I actually have another film of his. Now, it's a very underground film. It's directed by Fred Olen Ray. I'm not
Fred
sure.
Olen Ray, sure.
Yeah.
He did a lot of low-budget B-movies.
Yeah, I have a movie of his called Evil Tunes. Yeah, David Carradine is in that. That's the only other David Carradine thing that I have. But that film was just a joyride of like just fun and just like 80s, Z-list actresses, and just the tagline for it was "Who Framed Roger Rabbit meets the Evil Dead." Was just so fun. So I guess the question here is, how in the world did this project come about? I mean, what was the whole idea behind making this? I mean, I imagine that, you had been familiar, a lot of silent film fans out there would be familiar with the 1984 Giorgio Moroder presentation of Metropolis, which, of course, combined like MTV pop music like Freddie Mercury, Pat Benatar, with Fritz Lang's classic 1927 film. And so was that your inspiration to do this? And, how did you obtain the film? And just how did this project come about? What was the idea behind it?
Well, I had been in the business of producing films, mostly documentaries, but and distributing them. And I was a film collector, and I had a lot of 35 and 16 millimeter prints of films. Some were in the public domain, some weren't. And it just, at the time, digitization first came about as a technology. And so everybody was taking their films and transferring them to video, not even high-def video back then, but just video. And we thought at the time, gee, let's take a classic, and I was a horror buff, and how can you get a better classic than Nosferatu? But we wanted to update it. It's like George Lucas going back and enhancing Star Wars. So we said we just didn't want to digitize it and do credits or whatever. We wanted to do something different. And I remember sitting with the company accountant, no less, and I was saying, gee, we got to think about some kind of soundtrack. And he goes, oh, if you ever got the band Typo Negative. And I was like, Typo Negative? I had heard of them, but I wasn't, So and here's an accountant telling me a goth band, Typo Negative, and I heard their music. And I said, these guys are perfect. And the accountant said, you'll never get them. And of course, once he said that, I was like, oh, I'll definitely get them now. And that's what happened.
So obviously the songs on the Nosferatu soundtrack they're previously released items. I think the original intention, and you correct me if I'm wrong, was for them to do a full-on instrumental score.
Yeah, I had wanted them to do a score, and their schedule and all just couldn't do it, but they still wanted to do it. So I said, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you score the film with pieces you've had? So they actually went through the film, and I think they did an incredible job, and picked pieces from their library and put them to the different sections. So the only thing we did was, at the time, really review it after it was done in a scratch version. But I think they did an incredible job.
Yeah, I love it. And, what goes so well with it is, and no other release of Nosferatu up to this point had this, the color tinting.
Right.
I found it amazing that, it was done so accurately as well. I mean, the night scenes were in blue, the brightly lit scenes were like in sepia tone, right. And the medium light scenes were in pink. And I found that so fascinating that, somebody actually knew that the film was originally tinted. And also, because the print that you were working from was an American print. Right. From the Museum of Modern Art that I believe was duped in the late 30s, and that's the one that had all the Dracula titles and had all the Dracula names because Nosferatu was a loose adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, so the American release had changed all the character names from like Orlok to Dracula. Here's my Count Orlok action figure here. I love this thing to death. It's like one of the best things I ever bought for myself. So, yeah, and you restored the names, and, I found that so fascinating because no other release was really doing that at the time. They were just releasing the same old Dracula black and white print. And, if you see Nosferatu in black and white, you're actually seeing it at a disadvantage because, Murnau and the crew, unfortunately, they could not film day for night. It was a very low budget production even at the time, and so they said, hey, we have this tinting technique, why don't we film it during the daytime but have our night scenes be tinted in a different color. But when you see it on, like, let's say this copy, this is a very rare version. This has a synth soundtrack, very, very creepy. I put this at number 2 on my list as far as video representations of Nosferatu, and this is just plain old black and white. So, but you're seeing it at a disadvantage that way, and plus it has the Dracula titles. But nothing really, as far as Nosferatu really did come about until this release. This is the original home video cover. Actually, I have a better blown up version of it, which Wayne actually has generously provided me. This is the original home video art for Nosferatu, the First Vampire, released by Arrow Entertainment in 1998. I love how on the back here the original price was $29.95. People forget VHS cost a lot back in those days, a lot. And so 75 minutes. This is a wonderful piece of like history right here to have. And also the thing is that was so cool about it was there were limited editions of it that actually were signed by the members of Typo Negative, and this is what we have right here. This is actually a signed cover by the members of Typo Negative, and I believe that right there, that is Peter Steele's autograph. I recognize his autograph, and that's Peter Steele's autograph. So I actually have something autographed by Peter Steele, and I think that is the greatest thing in the world, that I have something, because he is like one of my mentors and icons, and it's sad that he passed, because imagine what he could have done had he lived, because he was, they would have been, the next Black Sabbath, I believe, if he had lived, to be honest with you. And so the film gets released, the 98 version. The title cards were very interesting. They were done in a type of Murder, She Wrote font.
Yeah. We, again, we wanted to think of enhancements and yet still sort of have that period type of look to it. So, a lot went into the production. And getting David Carradine was, a big deal, and obviously, the whole distribution of it, it went very well at the time. Suncoast, which is out of business, Tower Video, they all picked it up. Blockbuster. It's funny, all those names are gone, but
yeah, sad.
But Nosferatu is still alive and well, I guess.
Yeah, and this cover, it's a pretty interesting story about this cover. Now, this, of course, doesn't have any pictures from the actual film. There actually is, technically, because there's the vampire in the back cover there. But this cover, has this, look at this cover, ladies and gentlemen. It's just like, this doesn't look like anything you've seen in the film. Now, why don't you tell us the story of, this cover and everything, because that's an interesting little tale.
Well, we wanted something different again, and something like your opening with the light show to attract people, and, because you're competing, especially with an old film at the time, like on Blockbuster with new films, and so we wanted to make people stop and look at it. The models we used, Vlad and Sky in particular, Lynette was an actress, but Vlad and Sky were very much into the vampire lifestyle, and they're still very much into it. They were on America's Got Talent. They do this Fire Act and everything, and they've been in countless publications. And so we went down to Greenwich Village, and we had a whole photo shoot with them for the cover, and our designer had picked, those particular shots and put them together.
And, what I've also found interesting as far as the distribution of this, there was this website that was very, very popular at the time. It's like, we're going way, way back. This release has so many nostalgic attachments to it. You're talking about Suncoast, Blockbuster, all these old names that you don't even hear anymore. And then there's like the websites like GeoCities and stuff that, marketed this thing. And one of those sites was this website called The Coven, which doesn't even exist anymore. I just, researching for this program, I just, we're bringing up all these old names, like Suncoast, Blockbuster, and there's this website called The Coven. They were apparently selling the autographed copies, for this AIDS Foundation. Why don't you go into a little bit about that?
Well, we did have a number, I don't even know the exact number, but it was very limited number of autographed copies that the band did for us, and we had given them out to certain nonprofits and schools and that were going to use them or sell them for good causes, and that was just one of the websites that actually really, made a big promotion and did it. They reviewed the video as well, so they were very good to have done that.
I got a couple of questions.
All right, go ahead.
One is this the 1970 version, or is this a newer version of that movie?
Wayne can answer that.
Well, it's not the 1970 version. It's actually the 1998 version that we had taken, the print of Nosferatu, digitized it, put David Carradine on. Typo also gave us their music video to put at the end.
Yeah, Black Number One.
Black Number One.
I'm wearing the shirt actually for it.
Yeah.
Right
that's cool.
And so. Okay, go ahead. So it was sort of a new version that people just weren't expecting, because the Metropolis had been done in the 80s and people had sort of forgotten about that, and so this really caught on.
I mean, is this something I can find online?
You can find it everywhere online. I don't know about the cost,
right.
but all you have to do is Google it. And I haven't seen a dime from it since 1998, but people are still apparently making money, and there are a couple of old distribution contracts.
So yeah, this version, had a new score by Typo Negative, and was basically like the George M. Roeder version of Metropolis. It's like taking an old silent film and adding a new contemporary soundtrack to it. And that's basically pretty much what it was, but Wayne made it his own. This is like from his print, and this is basically his baby. I mean, that's why I'm glad to have him on. But thank you for calling into the show. How did you come to discover Nosferatu yourself?
I always knew about it. It seems like I always knew about Nosferatu because, I grew up watching, horror films, and I still love horror films, right? And I just always knew about Nosferatu. I can't really say how I first discovered it. I just, I must have been, like 5 or something.
Oh, wow.
And I was just, wow.
And that was back in the days when you had those horror hosts like Elvira.
Yeah.
Like Ghoulardi, those Sven Gulli.
Right. Well, there was Chiller Theater and, all those things.
Because we don't have that nowadays.
No.
It's sad.
Yeah. I mean, I was a big, George Romero fan. Fred Olen Ray did a bunch of films, so I just knew it.
Now, fans, another reason why I have Wayne and Stephanie on is because Wayne and I are actually collaborating on a re-release of Nosferatu the First Vampire, and you could help make that a reality. Now, we have a Facebook page, which is just called Nosferatu the First Vampire. Just type it in Facebook and just hit like. We're looking to get at least, there's their page right there. We're looking to at least get 1,000 likes, because what we're going to do is we're going to re-release it in theaters.
We hope to. There's no definite, plans for it, but we need the likes to do that.
Yeah, because we need to definitely get the attention. And the thing is that the company that released this originally, Arrow, sadly they're no longer in business. But Wayne and Stephanie have a new joint venture called Someday Productions. Now, Stephanie, why don't you go into Someday Productions and talk about how that came?
Well, what would you like to know?
Anything. I'm open.
Wayne and I have been collaborating on projects going back now since we first met about 8 years ago. The first project was a play that Wayne wrote, and he asked me to kind of come on board and produce, co-direct a full-length play. We did some rewriting, and that was just the very beginning of things with us. And as a very prolific writer of stage and screenplays, I jumped in and did a lot of revisions. Updating. He had kind of had a pile of scripts, and then we've collaborated on some brand new things, and we decided we needed a home for them. And I guess once we started dating just a few years ago, but at that time we knew we were always looking forward to our someday. And our someday was both in life and in work. And so we zeroed in on that name. Everything for us was someday. Someday we'll be here. Someday we'll have this. And so someday was just the ideal name. And when did we create Someday Productions? It's not been a year yet, has it?
I think it's been a year.
A year.
Maybe just a year.
Yeah.
But everything that we've worked on, whether it's past projects that we've kind of tweaked and updated to brand new projects, that's our home base for everything.
And in addition to that, you also, you guys do so many things. I mean, I'm friends with Wayne and Stephanie on Facebook, and they're always doing something. You know, they're never not busy. You know, I mean, they have, you know, for a while there, you were doing one-act repertory plays or something.
All summer, we were involved in one-act plays that Stephanie and I co-wrote and produced. We have our stable of actors that...
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Stable of actors.
And recently, and Stephanie can tell you more, we started this blog, really Pillow Talking blog, as part of our website to sort of tout our own projects, but it's suddenly taken a life of our own. And I can say today is the day we broke 500,000 hits.
You hear that, Kim Kardashian? They're coming for you. They're going to break the internet.
But
we actually crashed our site 3 times, so
wow.
we kind of broke the internet.
Wow.
But why don't you tell Geno about Pillow Talking?
Well, before I met Wayne, and actually the way I met Wayne was as a freelance writer. I have my degree in psychology. I was a psychotherapist, but I was wanting to work from home because I had 4 young children. And so I was freelance writing for some local magazines and newspapers. And I was sent to his house actually to report on a project that he had done. He did a public service announcement for muscular dystrophy. His oldest son has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and he had done a public service announcement with Olympia Dukakis. And I had to go report on that. And some interesting stuff about that initial meeting. He thought I was this, aggressive reporter because I wanted a quote from Olympia, which who wouldn't? That's how you write. But anyway, so he knew at that time that I was a pretty good writer, and as the writing and the creative kind of juices flowed, whether it was initially in those first year or two, or fast forward to about 4 or 5 years later, it's always been about the writing. We have all of these projects. I mean, we could burn down this studio if we lit them all up because we just have all these projects that are waiting for a home right now. But we just decided that maybe we should start blogging. It's kind of what everybody's doing now. And between our own abilities to write and our own creativity, but then melding it, we have a very distinct style in Pillow Talking because we both really recognize the differences between men and women. Me being have a psychology background, I clearly understand it, and Wayne, who teaches communications, also understands that. So we write from 2 perspectives, and sometimes our perspectives really overlap. I mean, it's not like dramatically female and dramatically male, but sometimes it is. And so we do this Pillow Talking blog. The name, we beat ourselves up forever until I think I kind of launched that idea. We were thinking, husband and wife laying in bed talking. And that's where we just came up with this Pillow Talking.
Practically how every episode of Everybody Loves Raymond ends.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, a lot of, I think, other sitcoms have taken off on that as well. But so this idea of Pillow Talking, just kind of, sharing, talking, at the end of the day kind of mentality. And so whatever we do, when we go places, we see movies, we read books, we even do interviews, I guess I would call them celebrity interviews. We do it from our own individual perspectives, but we put it together in kind of one cohesive piece in the same respect. So Wayne's been doing all the marketing because I take care of a lot of other things. Neither one of us has a minute of free time. And,
I know it's hard for me to book you on the show.
Yeah, it really was difficult.
well, we have 7 kids between us, so that keeps us exceptionally busy.
Yeah.
I teach
can
at 2
imagine.
colleges. He teaches at 1 college and has a full-time job in New York City. And that has zero to do with the creative projects that keep us unbelievably busy, and then the blog on top of it. So we don't sleep.
You're probably more busy than Barack Obama and Michelle Obama.
You know, I think they get paid to take free time. I think they get paid to go on vacation. Somebody
Yes.
needs to do that.
Yeah,
I had my first vacation in a very long time right after we got married. So
Yeah,
it was well earned and well
Yeah,
needed.
and folks, they just recently got married, so the honeymoon still isn't over.
That's
So
right. In 2
congrats
days.
on that.
Thank you. In
3 days.
In 3 days, it will be our
2-month anniversary.
2-month anniversary.
Has it been 2 months
Yes,
already?
already.
Wow.
October 3rd.
The time is just flying
I
by.
know, I know.
It's like just yesterday, you know, because I was getting excited for myself because I kept, you know, seeing Stephanie, you know, on Facebook doing the countdown, like, ooh, this many more days, and it was like it was just only yesterday that I was seeing those countdowns, and now look where we are.
Yeah, now we're counting down afterwards. It's like, you know, BC and AD now. But you know about the blog. You were a guest blogger on,
yes.
And the Nosferatu article received thousands of hits, and still, you know, receiving hits.
Wow. You know, if Kim Kardashian's rear could break the internet, my cowboy hat could break the internet. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's like I love this collaboration and this cross promotion because that's, you know, what it's all about. I mean, you know, Wayne and I actually have a mutual contact that I wasn't even aware of. His name is Michael Beccaro. Now, I actually knew him, you know, because he was an intern guidance counselor at the school I was attending, Middletown High School. And, you know, I said, hey, you know, I have this Nosferatu film I'd like to show you. It has this cool music by Typo Negative. And as he was watching, he was like, I know the guy who did this. He teaches at Central. And it was like, you know, I was like, really? You have his contact info? I want to contact him. I want to say, I love this thing. And so he was like, yeah, well, yeah, here and everything. And I was trying to contact you and say, you know, I love this version. You did such a great job. Unfortunately, the contact info was wrong because I got like an outdated email. It's the Media Lawman one.
Yeah.
And you know,
That's an old site now.
yeah, I was trying to, you know, collab then, but now look where we are. You know, it's like it's amazing how social media has revolutionized the way people do business. I truly think it is because, you know, imagine like back in the 90s, this wouldn't be happening right now. I wouldn't be talking to these two people right now, you know, if it wasn't for Facebook, because, you know, that's really how we made the connection. Making that connection was the key to the success, and now we're talking about this re-release. I mean, you know, as much as the Luddite that I am, I mean, I'm a big old school dude. I mean, I love everything old school. I mean, you guys, you know, have interviewed like Hall & Oates, and, you know, I've gone to, you know, see Lita Ford concerts, and this is stuff I'd love to do because I love this stuff. But, you know, it's like, you know, Facebook, you know, there is something to be said about newer technology, and Facebook is good to a certain extent. There's certain things that probably shouldn't be on Facebook. There's certain things that, you know, are unnecessary. But, you know, it's that connection and meeting people. I mean, I'm sure, you know, I mean, you could probably attest to this, that, you know, business works very well on social media nowadays.
Yeah, well, if you think about, I mean, back in the day when social media first started, Blair Witch Project, which was a horror film, really got the word of mouth early on through social media, where people were saying, is this a real movie, or is this, you know, real life, or is this a snuff film, whatever. And it was a viral thing early on in social media that made the Blair Witch Project such a big hit. And still today, you know, social media, there was a time when New York Times critics could close a play, or you know, you had the Daily News in New York and the New York Times and New York review a film, and they could kill a film. Now it's really up to people and whether or not a film makes it as word of mouth and viral and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, practically, I mean, you know, Mr. Kittleman, you know, he loves to like look up all the Captain America trailers and stuff, and, you know, it's like people could perceive their own opinions from that. I mean, me, I don't like the newer movies. I mean, I'm not afraid to say that. I mean, that's why I love Nosferatu. But, you know, it's like, it's amazing. You can develop your own opinions through watching things yourself. You don't have to, like, rely on other people's words. And that's sadly what killed a lot of films, especially in the 80s. I mean, you had films like, you know, Leonard Part 6, Ishtar, Howard the Duck, you know, that were just killed by bad word of mouth. And it's like, you know, some of these films are actually pretty good, you know, if you give them a chance. And
it's
you know,
funny. It's funny. I don't mean to cut you off, but I was on the last day of filming of Ishtar with Warren Beatty, and they had the Academy Awards on right after that. And we were at the Kaufman Astoria Studios, and I was standing next to Warren Beatty watching, and he actually like was talking to me about the Academy Awards, and I'm like, what am I going to say to Warren Beatty? But you know what? Now when I ask my students who Warren Beatty is, they don't know.
yeah, it's like if you ask them, you know, who Fritz Lang is or Murnau.
Yeah, they don't know.
And, you know, it's truly is sad that, you know, these people don't know, you know, who these great directors are, but yet they know who Selena Gomez is. They know who Kim Kardashian is. It's like, what's that instilling?
Well, I remember showing them a movie, and you've done this too. I mean, Good Will Hunting is a great movie. And,
Oh, yeah.
but a lot of my students haven't seen that, and I just showed that recently, and they liked it. But Paul Newman, I remember showing, and somebody said, oh, yeah, he's the salad guy. And I'm like, Paul Newman did more than just
Yes.
create the
I mean,
salad company.
He was Bullet, wasn't he? He was in Bullet?
No, Steve McQueen was in
Oh,
Bullet.
Steve McQueen.
You're thinking Towering Inferno when he and Steve McQueen were in.
Yeah, yeah, Paul Newman. He was the Sting.
Yes, he was the Sting with
Sting,
Robert
yes.
Redford. He
Yes.
was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof with Elizabeth Taylor. She was
Boy,
just
some
an
really old
incredible
names
actor.
now.
Yeah.
Liz Taylor. Come on.
By the way, I didn't know that Michael Beccaro, he was one of my students. I didn't know that was
Yeah.
actually the contact.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I, you know, really, that's how this whole thing just blossomed. I mean, you know, he was a great person to talk to, you know, and I always used to call him Raymond because he reminded me of Raymond from Everybody Loves Raymond. And, you know, it's funny how people just come to contact. I mean, you know, I'm friends now with a lot of different people. I'm friends with a fellow by the name of Thomas R. Reich, who produced an award-winning series of DVDs back in the 90s, which were in and of themselves restorations and re-enhancements of older product, the Cartoon Crazies line, where he took old Fleischer Brothers cartoons, Warner Brothers cartoons, and basically enhanced them, fully restored them, and added new sound effects and Dolby 5.1. I mean, who back in the late 90s was doing Dolby 5.1? Who was doing that? You know, and, well, the thing with Tom is that he was also the founder of Cheetah Records, who, you know, who was responsible for, like, DJ Magic Mike, you know, did a lot of stuff with Tiffany and all that stuff. So, you know, he was at the forefront of that.
It's interesting because Everybody Loves Raymond. You interviewed the producer of Everybody Loves Raymond.
And his wife.
And his wife.
Phil Rosen?
Yeah, that was many years ago when I was doing freelance writing for the newspaper. I believe he was at the Ridgefield Playhouse doing some sort of talk. And his wife, whose name I feel really bad, I cannot recall.
Monica?
She played the
Yeah, she played Amy, Monica
yeah.
Horan. And how I know this is because I watch the show every day.
Yeah, they were wonderful. In fact, I was new to doing that, and it was, you know, kind of intimidating, I think, at that point for me to interview celebrities. But I was just sitting there having conversations, just talking about normal things. Especially when I interviewed Monica, she was just like talking to another mom. It was fun.
She was great on that show. She
really was.
Everybody just worked like clockwork. I mean, you know, I often, you know, do like my Brad Garrett Robert impression. It never ends for Raymond. Everybody loves Raymond. You know, and I love that show. I watch it every day. I mean, you know, over Thanksgiving, me and my mother were actually watching the Thanksgiving episodes, you know, and it's like so many iconic scenes, you know, like Marie bringing out the tofu turkey, you know, the car coming through the house, you know, it's like, you know, that was probably the last great American sitcom. I have to say it. That was the last great American sitcom.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the really amazing things that I learned about it, and I think Wayne and I really incorporate into all of our writing, is this realism. From what Phil described, you know, that he would come into work and they'd sit around and he'd sit with Ray and all the other writers and they would just talk about nonsense that happened over the weekend. And before they knew it, it was the impetus for something. It was, you know, that perfect little gem that became the next story. And, you know, Monica said how something would happen, maybe they get in an argument, and he would talk about it, and she was kind of frustrated by that, because sometimes he would bring, things that might have been a little too personal into the mix, but it didn't really matter. And then that just became these real stories that, everybody wanted to watch, because it was the stuff that's happening in everybody's homes. Obviously, overinflated with some interesting characters, but...
The TV business, the only business where you could bring your personal problems to work.
Yeah.
It's like the great sitcoms, like, Leave It to Beaver, Andy Griffith, The Cosby Show, Everybody Loves Raymond. All those shows have resonated because, they had great writers and they had a sense of realism. I mean, I look at a show like Modern Family now and I'm just turned off by it. It just seems plastic to me that, they have like too many, tropes going on at once. Yeah, I mean, I don't do Modern Family or any of those.
It's interesting you said about the old shows. We did an interview with Paul Peterson from Donna Reed Show.
Oh, wow.
It's on our blog, and he has a very big following, not just because of acting, but because of being a child rights advocate.
Oh, we have Bill Mooney coming out from...
And we have Bill Mooney from Lost in Space coming out.
Although that's not exactly a, all-American family type of situation. But.
Yeah.
Well, I just love those shows. And, the Lita Ford thing. I can't believe you actually got to see her. That was amazing. I love, like, old 80s hair metal. But I just love all that old stuff. I love all that old music. Like Black Sabbath and stuff. I mean... nowadays people are always like, "Ooh, Geno, you have to like what's new, stay hip." No, I don't want to. I'm hip in certain areas, but there's certain areas where I'm not. I mean, I'm very much like a good friend of mine. His name is Ben Minot from the Out of the Archive. I've actually collaborated with him on a couple of different videos. And he's a great guy, but he's very into that old-fashioned type thing. I mean, he does everything the old-fashioned way, transferring stuff from camera to tape to DVD to computer. It's all very involved, but he does it, and he gets replacement parts for his VCR where other people just toss them out. But he's like dedicated, and that's admirable. He has practically every home video device known to man. He has all the way from the U-matic to like the Blu-ray. He has everything. But I'm being told like 5 minutes left. It's sad that this conversation has to end because I was just having like so much fun. We just got so carried away with it.
I know.
It's like again that thing about how time flies. I mean, it's like just yesterday, you two were like just boyfriend and girlfriend, and now you're married. It's like it's funny how you get older, how time just goes by. 2 minutes, see, there we go. But I want to say thank you. I mean, these two people came down all the way from practically New York to just be on my little ring.
I did come down from New York today.
Yes, exactly.
He was working in New York today.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to make sure everything went well today, folks. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart because this is my first time meeting Wayne was actually today, and I'm very honored, to know both Wayne and Stephanie and their son, Wyatt. He's a great lad. I've read many great things about him and the whole Keeley family. Basically, I mean, you guys have a lot to be proud of. I mean, you got your blogs, you got your place. You basically got everything. You basically got all your basic bases covered.
Well, we try.
We're working on it.
That's all I could do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you too. Thank you for this opportunity, and this was our first interview as a creative team together. So, thank you.
You're welcome. And with that, we're going to close out another episode of Geno.